Okay, it's 10 o'clock on February 6th, and we're going to continue our LUC meeting that started yesterday. This meeting is a hybrid meeting, which is physically located at Leopold Kamehameha State Office Tower at 235 South Beretania Street, room 405, and it's open to the public. And everything is being recorded on Zoom. We've got a few changes in terms of attendance from yesterday. Today, I am Dan Giovanni. I am the chair, and it's my pleasure to be here. Excused from today's meeting is Commissioner Michael Yamane from Kauai and Commissioner Kamakea Ohelo from Oahu, who may or may not join us from Zoom during the meeting. Present with me in the room is Commissioner Mel Kahele and Commissioner Brian Lee from Oahu and Commissioner Nancy Carter Smith from Hawaii Island and Commissioner Bruce U'u from Maui. Commissioner Miles Miyasato is joining by Zoom. Welcome back, Commissioner Miyasato. Are you back in your home and again?
Yes, I am, and no one is with me.
Thank you very much. And I understand that Commissioner Hayashida intends to join us by Zoom, but has not yet been able to connect. We will not wait for that. And also our LUC Deputy Attorney General Miranda Steed is also joining us from Zoom today. Also in attendance are LUC Executive Officer Daniel Orendanker, LUC Land Use Development Coordinator Arnold Wong is not in attendance as he was yesterday. LUC Chief Planner Scott Derrickson, LUC Staff Planner Martina Segura, and LUC Chief Clerk Ariana Kwan are in attendance. We are going to pick up with agenda item number 11 was, correct, or is it 12? 11. We start with agenda item number 11, which is a decision on commission position regarding SB 1334 and House Bill 1015. We'll use the same procedure as we were doing yesterday afternoon, in which we will ask for public testimony and then we'll ask the staff to make a presentation based on their review of the bill. And then the commission will hear public testimony a second time, and then we'll deliberate whether we'll want to take a position on that or not. So, Ms. Kwan, has there been any testimony? Anybody want to do oral testimony at this time on number 11?
Nobody on the Zoom has used the Q&A feature to sign up for testimony on this agenda item, but I want to point out we did receive 18 written testimonies at the conclusion of yesterday's meeting that have been posted to the website.
I did notice that, and I hope all the other commissioners did notice that as well. So thank you for attending to that so promptly yesterday. Mr. Orendanker, can you please provide us a summary and your assessment and recommendations regarding SB 1334 and House Bill 1015?
I'm going to ask Scott Derrickson, our chief planner, to begin the discussion on this bill.
Mr. Derrickson, please.
Yeah, Scott Derrickson, planner, OUC. So Senate Bill 1334 and House Bill 1015 are companion bills, so they're the same. They seek to amend Chapter 205, creating a new section that allows county planning agencies to petition a county land use authority, which in this case is the planning commissions, to decide district boundary amendments for lands greater than 15 acres with no maximum or ceiling number of acreage when lands conform with a county general plan or development plan or community plan. Staff has identified that this legislation has constitutional issues with regard to due process. It is counter to the Town versus Land Use Commission Supreme Court decision that required a quasi-judicial process to adjudicate or change property rights. The bill is not limited to just agricultural lands. It could also include rural and conservation lands as well. It raises issues about how public trust concerns are going to be addressed, or if they are required to be addressed.
Yeah, our position on this is similar to SB 36 and SB 1157, which we discussed yesterday. It's our belief that given the circumstances that we should not be testifying on this matter, only or in support of this matter, or and only offering technical advice if the bill is heard.
So the technical advice would be to raise the issues that Mr. Derrickson as concerns.
Yes, that is correct.
Commissioners, any questions or suggestions? Commissioner Lee?
Thank you. Oh, yeah, can you just briefly detail what kind of concerns? I agree with your position, but I just want to hear, what you'll be relaying to them.
Well, the due process issues we discussed earlier, or yesterday. The problem with having the county have the ability to move district boundaries based on the general plans is one of due process. Every landowner under the Constitution is entitled to due process if their interest in land is going to be negatively impacted, or you could argue it's positively impacted, but their taxes go up. So it's our belief that the bill may not meet those due process requirements. Second of all, as Mr. Derrickson pointed out, one of the issues with this bill, in addition to the other issues raised in SB 36, is that it seems to allow counties to do district boundary amendments on conservation land as well as rural land in addition to agricultural land, which is of concern. I think that those two issues are paramount.
Yeah, I'd like to also add too that there's already a process. If the counties want to come to the commission for a district boundary amendment covering a large area that's, say, covered by their growth boundary and their general plan or the development or community plans, they can do that under current law. And in fact, they have done that in the past.
Okay, yeah, just want some clarification because both of these bills are part of the governor's package, so there's no direction down the line through DBED and to you folks to support it?
When this bill was being discussed, we made our concerns clear. And as was pointed out yesterday, while this is an administrative measure, this is an independent body so that we have the ability to formulate a position. As in conformance with the governor's office's directions with regard to testimony, we would not be testifying in opposition. We would just be pointing out concerns.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
I got a question.
Commissioner Wu?
I wanted to ask, what is the county's process? Because you said there is a process that the county can utilize.
The counties can apply to the Land Use Commission for district boundary amendments the same way an individual landowner can.
And that might be some of the issues. And so I'm so glad we're having these discussions, even though sometimes I don't want to have the discussions. You can see the disconnect between, and I always saw that, between the land use, which is us, I'm a part of it, and and the state reps who introducing some of this. And I know our process all takes time. So every process is time consuming and costly, regardless what we want to say, right? But if you look at UHERO stats, Hawaii is the most overregulated land use in a nation. Second to Jersey is second, but we winning by a third. Like we winning first place by a mile. But I understand the legalities, sort of speak, but and again, I think everyone's looking for a solution. And I read every testimony last night. A lot of them were duplicate, though. I read every one, but just to get a sense of where everyone's coming from. And my sense is that we in a panic mode for housing. We had flight risk, right? And people looking at solutions for this process that is lengthy, long, expensive, costly, and we part of it. And again, that's why I think this deliberation we have it, and you guys commenting on bills, and we are as a whole, as a group, with state ledge, with governor, hopefully you find some solutions, because I'm not okay with a project taking 8 years to 15 years to build.
Yeah.
And I heard about saving Ina, saving land, and our grandchildren and children. None of them's here that is saved. So respectfully, I think that's what we're looking at. And I think we've been overprotected. That's my personal feeling. And that's why I take 9 people to make the decisions here. When 6% of Maui is zoned urban, that's it, 6%. We got enough we got enough lands in ag. We hear about ag farming. We farm. I farmed for years, my family, and a lot of people talk about it, but don't do it. I just find it to be hypocritical. But it's just my frustration and my not of what my intent here is to make a difference. And sometimes it goes against the grain of what was here prior or how it's been handled. But I really feel like every step of the process, if we can mitigate or expedite in the right way, I think will be beneficial for our people, the people I represent.
Yeah,
Thank you.
oh, go ahead.
No, I'm good. I just want to share my mind out.
Yeah, if I can share my mind out a little bit. I agree with you that some changes need to be made. I think that one of the problems with what's happening right now is that it's not a community-based discussion. About 5 or 6 years ago, was it that Senator Schatz introduced a sweeping legislation to change land use in Hawaii? And it was the result of a lot of community discussion. It wound its way through the legislature. There were compromises made at different hearings and so forth and so on. And at the nth hour, it died, mainly because of, believe it or not, pressure from the developers. You know, they didn't want to change the process that much. And so I think that would be successful, you know, that type of a process where the community was involved in making the changes and they didn't feel like they were left out. When I say the community, I mean the agricultural community, everybody, But these bills are flawed. And yeah, I mean, that's the problem that staff has with them, is that they're flawed.
And again, hence this why I like the discussion out of all of this, that we can have this discussion, this round table or square table discussion. And again, you guys comment to the appropriate people introducing the bill. So we kind of, regardless, we kind of on the same page and maybe at different perspectives, but I like this part.
So I'd like also to respond to your comments, Commissioner Ubu. First of all, your comments are very welcome, and it's very useful to know where you're coming from. We're all coming from a place where we're trying to make the processes better and fairer for everyone. I want to speak specifically about the housing and where I'm coming from. I have heard remarks similar to the ones you made about being heavily regulated, and the regulations are that are so great in Hawaii is a real impediment to moving forward on a timely basis. In fact, the mayor of Honolulu last night gave a speech about being the most heavily regulated state in the nation, similar to the one you had. I can tell you, though, that the citation for that comment of that the politicians are making, like the mayor of Honolulu last night, Mr. Bonjardi, stems from a Uhero analysis of what are the costs of housing. And the Uhero analysis concludes that close to 40 to 50% of the process for and the cost of housing is associated with quote unquote regulations. So I confronted Uhero. I said, tell me what's inside the box for what you call regulations, because every time somebody studies, why don't we have housing, including the report that was shared with us at the last meeting, they say the number one obstacle is always infrastructure. Who's going to pay for the upfront infrastructure? So I asked Uhero directly, Mr. Bonham, I said, I don't see where you capture the cost of infrastructure as an impediment. He says, oh, I call that regulation. I said, what? The dollars that are required for a developer to build a sewer, you call that regulation? That's not the way I interpret it, because you need money to build infrastructure. So where's that money going to come from? In Hawaii today, it's all in the back of the developer, and that's the impediment. And it may be that's the only way to get the project done. But in my personal view, until we get the money, not the regulation, but the money in the hands of counties to build infrastructure, we're always going to have a problem building affordable housing. Yeah. So I just want to that's where I'm coming from.
Go ahead.
And I agree.
I love
with
this
you.
discussion.
No,
I love
I
it.
100% agree with you, but it takes everything, right? It takes some of the regulation, it takes
Sure.
some of the infrastructure, because infrastructure definitely is a barrier. 100%. The cost of infrastructure is crazy, and it is put on the backs of the developer. So I 100% agree with you on that.
So I think what's happening is that when we approve a petition for a project, we have a condition that says the developer will pay for infrastructure. So that's, Uhero's picking that up like a regulation, but there's no other way for the infrastructure to be built in Hawaii because there's no tax money to do it. Sure, Commissioner Lee.
Thank you. Oh, this is a great discussion. I have to say though that, and I've been around this for a long time too. Uhero is not the only one that points to Hawaii. MIT has a study where they're saying it's 58% of the cost is regulation. And they compare this worldwide, and all projects have infrastructure costs. So we're still comparing the same thing. Why is Hawaii's infrastructure cost higher? At each CDA, they had infrastructure business improvement districts where the state issued bonds or community facility district type taxation to provide infrastructure. And that's a lot cheaper because if the state issues bonds for infrastructure, it costs 5-6% interest. You make a developer do it, he's got to put a 30% profit margin on that infrastructure. So there are other ways. But this bill that we're talking about now, yes, Scott, the counties do it, but this one says that the counties alone decide. It doesn't go to the state LUC. Yesterday, we couldn't even agree to have more than 4 votes, that it still goes to the LUC, but instead of 6 votes, we have 5, and only for 5 years. We couldn't even agree on that to pass that. So how are we going to now say, yeah, we support something that takes the LUC out of it completely with 0 votes? You know?
I agree.
Thanks.
So I think I'm going to try to move this thing along with my assessment of the general feeling of the commissioners is to follow the guidance of or recommendation of the director and his staff, which says this bill has some problems. We can't support it as written, but we'll show up and answer questions and about our concerns. Commissioner Carsmith.
Thank you. It seems to me that this is what OPSD talked about when they came and gave us a presentation, and they talked about perhaps the county doing exactly this, and it was limited to certain areas. They were very specific about that, and I thought that that's what this was, but I could be wrong. Am I wrong?
I think that was the 1.6%, and they were supposed to come back to us because Commissioner Miyasato asked, could you give a breakdown by island where that was? And
Mm-mm.
it's only regarding 1.6% of the land that's also in the county growth district. So it's not a like fling the doors open, and do whatever you guys want at the county. But I want to be clear though that I think that Dan should provide comments, but just want to clarify that doesn't mean he's going to say that we're opposed to it, right?
Oh, we're not
Yeah.
opposed to it.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, to answer your question, Commissioner Carsmith, this bill doesn't say what I think Mary Alice thought it said. Or it changed after she made her presentation, because she was talking about specific land areas, and this is a broad.
This is a broad stroke. Okay. Again, I think the intention is good. I agree that the conservation land and important ag lands shouldn't be a part of it, and that it should be more confined to certain areas. So I hope that you will address that. And then the other thing is, we keep saying how the county doesn't have due process, but they do. I mean, they have almost as equally complex process as we do. And so I just don't want to discount that.
I don't disagree with you, but the difficulty with these bills is that they allow the counties to bypass that due process procedure. And that's where we have the concerns. I mean, if this bill, and I just mentioned the Schatz bill, that laid out in detail how the county was supposed to handle DBAs. If that language was in this bill.
Got it. Okay. So a suggestion that more definition be put in the process would be helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Commissioner Miyasato.
Yeah, real quick. I know you want to move along, but just to clarify, when I asked Mary Alice about that 1.6, which it does mention in section 1 of this bill, I asked if that was grandfathered just for that specific lands that were already within that urban design. And she said no. So it's a wide open, as our executive director had pointed out. It's wide open and open for the future that the county will have jurisdiction over all of the everything mentioned in this bill. And I guess just the other concern to keep in mind is if it goes to the county, it usually goes to the council after the planning commission. And then that's where I guess I have a little bit more concern, because then it becomes political rather than, sometimes it becomes political rather than just being based on a really good presentation, where I've seen good presentations come out and it passed the planning commission, goes before the council, 200 people show up in opposition, and council reverses their decision at the final hearing because they want to get reelected. So just a couple more concerns with turning things over to the county. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, Commissioner. That was very welcome comments and very enlightening, and I think we're on board. Thank you. So Commissioners, I think we got a clear direction on this one. If anyone feels differently, let me know. We'll move forward. Okay, next bill is agenda, pardon me, anybody want to do public testimony on this one?
Seeing none in the Q&A feature, Chair.
Okay, then we'll move forward. So agenda item number 12, decision on SB 740 and companion bill HB 777. Anybody wanting to do public testimony on these?
Seeing none in the Q&A feature, Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Arndecker, will you and your staff please summarize this bill and express your concerns and recommendations?
Chair, do we want to put on the record that Ken Hayashida joined us at 10:15 a.m.?
Oh, great. Welcome, Ken. I have to apologize. I didn't notice. The screen is very small here.
Sorry about that. I'm in my
Yeah.
office with nobody else is here with me.
Okay, thank you for clarifying and welcome. So just for the record, we now have all but 2 commissioners in attendance, so we super quorum. So back to item number 12, Mr. Orndicker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. These 2 bills are actually fairly simple and to a certain extent welcome. It authorizes us, the Land Use Commission, to designate another agency, including but not limited to the Office of Planning and the Department of Agriculture or Agribusiness Development Corp. to monitor compliance with any restrictions imposed on a special permit. We don't have any problem with this bill. We welcome it. I think that what we may hear OPSD and the Agribusiness Development Corp. Say is that they don't have the staff to do this, but the intent of the bill we're fine with. It doesn't impact us really. It just gives us the ability to have somebody else watch over the special permits. My advice on this would be to testify that we support the intent, but we defer it to the other agencies with regard to their ability to conform their operations to do this.
Okay, so you recommend we support the intent of the bill, but we defer to other agencies that would be called upon to implement the measures in the bill.
That is correct.
Okay. Commissioners, comments? Commissioner Carr-Smith.
Was LUC involved at all in this bill?
No, we are not.
Okay. And how is it done now? How is the enforcement taken care of?
This is monitoring, not enforcement.
Monitoring?
The monitoring, we don't have the staff to monitor. And so what happens is that we rely on either the counties who are there or neighboring landowners or interested parties to tell us when there's been a violation.
Thank you.
I just wanted to mention, I know on counties, the planning commission on Maui monitors the special use permits. So.
And a lot of times it's that they provide this chair. A lot of times, it comes from a complaint by a neighbor or somebody that might be affected, or someone who has a personal interest in a condition, and they'll bring it to the attention of either the county or the state land use commission, and that's what raises the flag, so to speak. But there's no proactive monitoring. It's always been that's not 100%.
Sure.
Commissioner Lee.
Thank you. Yeah, just to clarify, this bill doesn't do enforcement. It's just to monitor compliance, right? So let's say the Department of Ag tells us, hey, these guys are not in compliance. What would the next step be?
The next step would be for us to schedule a hearing to, well, special permits don't technically have the order to show cause provision in them. But what we can do is we can revoke the special permit.
Could you ask for a status?
Yeah, we would ask for a status conference and then give the petitioners the opportunity or the landowner the opportunity to explain to us why they are not in compliance with the decision and order. Since special permits have a limited time frame anyway, I mean, we have the ability to shorten that time based on the evidence that's presented to us. So this is an area that is sort of in the twilight zone. of land use in Hawaii. Most of the time in the past, when special permits have been violated, this resulted in a lawsuit and we weren't even involved. So.
Commissioner Lee?
Thank you for the explanation. I'm wondering, why don't we just support the bill? Why just support the intent?
Well, because we don't want to step on the other, agencies' toes. If Mary Alice, for instance, of Office of Planning and Sustainable Development is going to come in and say, we just don't have the staff to do this, or ADC is going to say the same thing, that's not our call.
Okay, thank you.
I got a question, Chair.
Sure.
So,
Commissioner, go ahead.
yeah, so which agency would they be looking at in accomplish this goal? Are we looking at funding this agency, or funding the agency is gonna be monitoring?
That's up to the legislature.
So we're looking at monies.
Yeah,
We need
I
money.
mean, if I were Mary Alice, for instance, or ADC, and the bill was moving, I would tell the legislature that I couldn't do it unless they gave me some money.
Thank you.
Mr. Erickson?
If I might, maybe just a little bit more context. Remember that special permits that are more than 15 acres go through the county first, and the county generally puts conditions on that special permit. One of those conditions often is a condition that if things are not being done consistent with the special permit, that the county can revert the special permit. Also, Chapter 205-12 puts enforcement authority for things that are going on in the agricultural district on the counties. So that's where usually the action, as Dan was indicating, takes place. Oftentimes there would have to be a lawsuit to enforce.
So it's not explicitly monitoring, but isn't it often the provision to stay abreast of the progress by a condition requiring annual reports?
Yes, exactly. Right. And again, the annual reports are on the petitioner, the applicant, to give to the counties, to give to Office of Planning, and the Land Use Commission. But then the responsibility for doing, any fact checking of what's put in those annual reports, that's kind of the question mark, and that goes to the monitoring.
But if the annual reports are delinquent, that's a red flag that there's probably something not going forward, and that would come to our attention, and we could ask for a hearing to show progress or a status report. Is that right?
Right. That's correct.
And the county could do the same?
The county could do the same. Yeah.
Thank you. Anything further on this one before I try to summarize? Okay, so we agree with the intent of this. Our position is we agree with the intent. We're not going to specifically say that we are in support or in opposition, in part because it does require other agencies to actually implement the provisions, and it's up to them to make their own case, or if they're able to do that. But increased monitoring of a decision and orders requirements is something that we would welcome, and we authorize the executive director to make that case.
Thank you, Chair.
Fair enough. Okay, so I didn't mention that we will be taking about a 5-minute break on an hourly basis just for biomedical reasons. But we're going to lose some commissioners here in the early afternoon. So even though we've arranged for lunch, we're going to try and power through. Okay. See if we can. So I know that Commissioner Carr-Smith, your stop is at 1:30. Is that correct? 1:45. Anybody have a stop before 1:45 today? Hearing none, we'll shoot for 1:30 and see if we can do that. Thank you. Okay, next one is item number 13, which is House Bill 826. Ms. Kwan, does anybody want to testify on that one?
Seeing none in the Q&A feature, Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Orndecker, please give us a summary of this bill and your recommendations on testimony, if any.
This is an amendment to chapter 201H, but it references chapter 205. And it authorizes HHFDC to work on projects. It doesn't talk about funding, so I don't know what the interconnection is here. To develop residential housing for long-term rental or workforce fee simple ownership. And they may be permitted by a county planning commission under this section, provided that the project area is no larger than 100 acres immediately adjacent to the urban district, on lands with soil classified C, D, E, or U, and identified on maps for only residential use in a county comprehensive general plan. And it says that all applications to the county planning commission shall include written concurrence from the executive director. I'm not sure whether that references the executive director of the land use commission or the executive director of HHFDC. Has reviewed the project and is agreement that the proposal is solely inclusive of residential housing for long-term rental or workforce fee simple ownership. And then it says that applications shall be reviewed pursuant to the process set forth in section 205-6, which is our special use permit process. And that section 91-9, which requires a contested case hearing, shall only apply at the point of county planning commission review. This is another one of those bills where I don't know what to make of it. It's kind of a chop suey bill. It impacts a lot of different areas without specifying how it's going to work. My feeling on this measure is that until it moves on and there may be some amendments that we should stay out of it. I don't think that allowing special use permits for, my main problem with the bill is that allowing SUPs to be used for permanent housing is inconsistent with chapter 205. But, you know, I can't get my arms around this bill because it doesn't make a lot of sense.
So you adequately confused me.
Yeah. My suggestion on testimony is that we testify that the way I would testify on this bill, if the commission agrees, is that we're very supportive of any efforts to increase the amount of workforce housing and senior housing. However, there are some serious flaws with this bill that would need to be ironed out before we were comfortable with it.
Okay, and give me an,
Well, it's unclear as
give me an
to,
example of a flaw.
okay, it's unclear as to whether the executive director refers to the executive director of HHFDC or the land use commission, number one.
Okay, give me another flaw.
Okay. No, it doesn't. So yeah, that's why it's unclear. It's also unclear whether this is intended to result in a district boundary amendment using the SUP process, or it's whether it's going to result in a special use permit for residential housing. I'm not sure whether or not the legislature intends either one of those things. It's unclear.
Okay, commissioners, questions, suggestions?
I like most of what you said, but I would err on the side of we have issues or concerns instead of saying major concerns. I just minus the one prior to concerns. I think we fine.
Yeah. I don't actually, I shouldn't have used the word major. We never use the word major when we draft testimony. We just say we have concerns.
Mr. Carsmith.
I echo that, and I just encourage you to lead with the support part.
Yeah, we always do.
Okay.
I mean, the,
Support the intent.
yes, yeah, the difficulty with some of these bills is that they are works in progress. And, without being clear on what the intent is, you know, by the drafter of the bill, I don't know how to tell them to fix it, you know, or how to assist them in fixing it, so.
So, commissioners, anything further? So what I'm hearing is that, and I'll attempt to summarize, that we ask you to testify, saying that we appreciate and support the intent of the bill to the extent that we can understand it, and that operationally, we have a number of concerns the way it is written, and that has to be cleaned up before it could be put into effect.
That is correct.
Okay. Good with that? Okay, anybody want to testify, Ms. Kwan?
Nobody has used the Q&A feature for testimony.
Okay, great. So we'll move on to agenda item number 14, which is a decision on the commission's position regarding SB 1332 and companion bill HB 103. Ms. Kwan, does anybody want to testify on these two?
Nobody on the Zoom has used the Q&A feature to testify.
Mr. Orndenker, will you give us a summary of this bill and your recommendations, how to testify, if any?
The summary that's contained on the agenda is pretty accurate. This is an attempt to circumvent the lawsuit that is currently up at the Supreme Court, with regard to important agricultural lands. I understand what they're trying to do, and I actually agree with it.
Explain it to us.
Okay, so when the city and county of Honolulu came in with their important agricultural land designation proposal, there were a number of issues that were raised during the course of that hearing. One of them being notice, because it took 8 years for them to complete it. But another big issue that was raised, I'm not sure if it was legitimate, and that's why we're waiting to hear from the Supreme Court, is that the land, designating land IAL changes the landowner's interest in their land, because the IAL statute could be read to say that only people associated with farming the land could live on the property. I think that was an inaccurate interpretation, but the courts are going to tell us whether that's correct or not. So what this bill does is it tries to clarify that, actually it removes the ability, the language in the IAL section of our statutes, and the implication would be that the designation of IAL lands does not change the provisions of Chapter 205 with regard to regular agricultural land that would allow housing and people to live on the property. We're kind of dancing around on the head of a pin here. This is an attempt to fix that. I don't think we have a problem with the intent. But most of the legislators are aware that this is up in the Supreme Court. So I'm not sure this bill is going to have any legs. My proposal on testimony is that we support the intent, but we're there to answer questions.
So I'd like to just take a moment and share with my fellow commissioners my recollection of this hearing that we had on IAL land that was brought forward by City and County of Honolulu. I understood at the time that the counties independently could do through a planning study and designate IAL lands in their county, and then bring that to the Land Use Commission and says, we've done this study, these maps, this analysis and we're gonna make these lands IAL. The Land Use Commission denied or rejected their plan. And they worked really hard on it. Took years. They didn't meet the deadlines, they come in late, all that stuff, and the other counties haven't even done it. They've been letting Honolulu go first. It was rejected on two bases that I recall. One was that the affected landowners on Honolulu did not get proper notification. There was an attorney that represented 1,000 landowners that said, my 1,000 people never got notice that this was even going on, so we couldn't interact with the city and county of Honolulu to make our case, number one. And number two, it was rejected because it appeared, based on the criteria that was used, that it was very much in favor of large landowners, but the small landowners, the small farms were like being forced to kind of go along and they weren't getting adequate hearing. So it was out of balance. So it was rejected with the suggestion, go fix those problems and come back to us. And then maybe we can, make sure everybody gets a notice, make sure everybody gets an opportunity to say what they want about their land. And then there was these other items like this one about, could you live on the land if it's designated? It was very confusing to all of us, right? But it was rejected and nothing's come forth since then. And now you got this lawsuit. Is that correct?
That's correct. I mean, this is the type of thing that attorneys just love, because it's
Lawsuits.
It's the issue with whether or not you could live on the property was directly connected to the Constitution and the U.S. Constitution and rights and property. And so the argument was that this is a due process issue and that landowners are entitled to a due process hearing before things can be designated IAL. The difficulty that the county had, and I happen to agree with the county on this one, is that, the IAL statute, and I was actually involved at the legislature when this was being promulgated. The IAL statute was an attempt by the legislature to deal with the Supreme Court's continual reprimanding of the legislature because they didn't implement Article 11 of the Constitution, which requires important agricultural lands to be protected. So they came up with this process. It was recognized at the time that it was voted on the floor that it was flawed, and that it was going to need further review. The legislature never took it up again, and so we're stuck with something that really doesn't work all that well.
My personal sense was that if we, at the time, if the Land Use Commission would have accepted the Honolulu City and County Honolulu plan, it would have been 1,000 lawsuits to follow, and nothing would have happened. It was a mess.
In my personal opinion, the IAL statute would have been much better because what the IAL statute was really intended to do was to be a planning tool. It was supposed to give the counties the ability to designate where the most important agricultural lands were in the state so they could be preserved in compliance with the Constitution. It wasn't intended to change anybody's interest in land. And so the county and Land Use Commission staff were taken aback by this argument that, well, if you change what the criteria for living on the land, then it's a due process issue. The statute would have been much better, and this is kind of what this bill intends to do, if they hadn't mentioned the residential issue at all and just left it as part of 205, 4.5 with regard to general agricultural land. Then it wouldn't have been an issue at all. But because the statute contains that provision, there was an argument that there was a due process. No, this bill. This bill would take out that separate section in the IAL statute on housing so that it would go back to 205-4.5, which would maybe solve one of the problems with the IAL statute. But I mean, personally, I believe that we should wait until the Supreme Court renders the decision. But I mean, I don't, what this bill is attempting to do, we don't have a problem with. We actually support.
So you are recommending that you would testify, that there's a
In
difference
support, in support with concerns.
in support with concerns.
And the concern would be that the matter is up in front of the Supreme Court and anything that the legislature does may get undone.
So the cart before the horse argument.
Yes.
Commissioners, anything further?
I got a question.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
When you
Coyote.
refer to farm cluster housing, and there's gonna be an incentive, is the incentive gonna be for the actual worker, or is it gonna be for the owner of the farm,
For the landowner.
the landowner? Thank you.
Commissioner Carr Smith?
Yeah, just for the record, I like most of what I read here. I think it sounds great and addresses housing issues, sustainability in terms of our food production might make that easier. I just think there's a lot of things about this that are good.
In a vacuum, we would just support this bill
Yeah,
flat out.
yeah.
But because it's up at the Supreme Court.
It's a
we
cart
have
and
to-
horse. It's a cart and
Yeah,
horse.
yeah, we have to warn the legislature that, hey, look,
But
great
that's out of
idea.
our control.
Right.
The Supreme Court, but we can
Yeah,
support this.
Okay, so our position is that we would support this bill. However, it's complicated because there's an active Supreme Court case that could render it moot. And we should wait. Our position is wait till that clarifies and then the bill might be considered at that time. Does that make sense?
that's correct. Yeah,
Okay.
that's what I'm suggesting.
Ms. Kwan, any further public testimony on this item?
Seeing none in the Q&A feature, Chair.
Okay, great. We'll move forward to our next item. We'll take this one and then we'll take a break. This is decision on commission planning was in SB Senate Bill 1099. Anybody sign up for testimony on 1099?
Nobody's used the Q&A feature, Chair.
Okay, Mr. Orndaker, would you give us a summary of Senate Bill 1099 and your recommendations?
We would strongly support this measure, except for the fact that there's no money with it. The counties haven't been able to, or have not chosen not to undertake the IAL designation process. And that's a concern.
What is the bill?
I'm sorry. The bill is to authorizes the Land Use Commission. It's very simple. It authorizes the Land Use Commission to designate lands as important agricultural lands if the county fails to identify IAL lands by December 31st, 2027. Like I say, the counties haven't done it. They view it as an unfunded mandate. And to a certain extent, they're correct. It takes a lot of staff and effort to do this. We welcome the opportunity to undertake it, but I would point out to the legislature that we currently don't have the staff to undertake it and that we would need funding and positions to do it.
So basically, it's not being done. The deadline will likely be approached. But this bill would then shift the responsibility to Land Use Commission. Land Use Commission would welcome it, provided that it is funded to do so.
And there's a 2-year time frame for the counties to come forward. So, I mean, one of the things about this bill is that if it does pass, we have 2 years to work the legislature for funding if the counties
But
don't
you should
do it.
raise that issue now anyway.
Yes, we'll start now. It takes at least 2 or 3 cycles before we get money, so.
Okay, commissioners, questions, comments? Hearing none, then we would concur with your recommended approach, which is to support the intent of the bill because the IEL is not being done by the counties, and they may not make that deadline. If they don't, it would shift to us, but we wouldn't have the resources to do it, so there needs to be, some companion legislation to provide dollars, correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
I got a question, Chair. So we are actually, Danny's actually gonna go up and support the bill,
The
Yeah.
intent, yeah,
the intent of the bill.
correct, or would you want to be stronger than that?
I think it amounts to the same thing. You know, I mean, we're supporting the bill, but we're saying, we'll do it, but give us money. You know, so.
Ms. Kwan, anybody want to testify on this?
Seeing none in the Q&A feature, Chair.
Okay. So we've got, I think we've got 4 left. Let's take a 5-minute break and we'll come back at 11:01 or 11:02. Take a recess. Okay, we'll go back in session. It is 11:02. So the next order of business is item 16 in our agenda, which is a decision on commission's position regarding SB 26 and HB 1451. Ms. Kwan, has there been anybody that signed up for oral testimony on this one?
Seeing none in the Q&A feature, Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Arndenker, will you give us a summary of this bill and your suggested approach to testimony for this bill?
Oops, turn my microphone on. Thank you, Mr. Chair. The only reason we're involved in this bill is that the executive director of the LUC is one of the named members of this task force. Absolutely no problem what this task force is attempting to accomplish. And we would testify in support.
Do you see any concerns in the details?
Well, studies are studies. I don't see any difficulty. I mean, it doesn't lay a lot of, costs on us and OPSD because we both already have GIS programs. And it also appropriates $1 million, to fund staff positions and for contractual services. I mean, we would support this measure. I think that the fact that it has $1 million attached to it is going to make it problematic at the legislature.
Mhm. Who would lead this study?
Excuse
What
me?
agency would lead it?
The agency is, that is designated as the lead is HCDA. But it's an attached task force.
Task force within the HCDA.
No, it's only attached to the HCDA for administrative purposes. The chair is, the head of OPSD.
I'm confused. So the summary says a task force within HCDA.
That's kind of inaccurate, because if section 1 of the bill provides says there is established the Affordable Housing Land Inventory Task Force to be placed in the Hawaii Community Development Authority for administrative purposes.
But for,
Similar to the way we're attached to DBED.
okay, but for execution, it's OPSD?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
I mean,
So that should be cleaned up, right?
yeah, and I expect OPSD to testify to that effect.
Commissioners, questions, concerns, suggestions? Hearing none, Gar Smith?
Yeah, it looks like there's a hearing on this tomorrow.
I've been here, so I haven't been
Yeah,
checking my
yeah,
hearing
yeah.
notices.
So
but-
just pointing that out in case
Yeah,
you didn't see that.
okay. I mean, our testimony would be irrelevant to this, because all we were gonna say would be we support.
Yeah,
You know, and not,
understood.
OPSD is the one we would expect to take the lead on this.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. So the guidance is that our position is we would support it, ask you to support it, subject to, and attend the hearing if you can.
Yes, that's correct. What we would, our testimony would, if we, I don't think we have time to get it in, but if the bill moves forward, at the next hearing, our testimony would be that we support the measure, and we defer it to OPSD with regard to any technical issues.
Good with me. Anybody else? Yeah, we'll go forward with as you suggest. Ms. Kwan, has anybody signed up to testify on this?
Seeing none in the Q&A feature, Chair.
Okay, great. 16, next one is 17. 17 is a decision on commission's position regarding SB 498 and House Bill 1294. Ms. Kwan, anybody want to testify on this one?
Seeing none in the Q&A feature, Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Arndecker, please summarize this bill, these bills, and your recommendation.
This again is establish a workforce housing group. This one attached to the agricultural ADC, the Agricultural Development Corporation. Once again, the reason that we're involved is the executive director is named, the chairperson actually in this case. So would be of the Land Use Commission is directed as a member of the task force. The mayors, the county planning departments, the Hawaii Farm Bureau, the Hawaii Ag Foundation, I mean, the intent of this bill is very good. But its implementation will be near impossible because it's so unwieldy. And it also appropriates $800,000 for the task force. And the task force is located within I think it's, am I reading this correctly, Scott, within ADC? Oh, no, the Department of Agriculture. Yeah. We don't have a problem with this, and we're more than happy to participate. I think my testimony would be to suggest that with regard to the section that calls for the chairperson of the Land Use Commission to participate, I would just add the words "or his designee." So the chairperson isn't overburdened with this.
Commissioners, any comment, questions? Hearing none, I think there is agreement to support the intent of the bill, but to clarify the respective role of the EO to be himself or his designee. Although you might comment that it looks a bit unwieldy as it's currently drafted. Yeah. Okay, Ms. Kwan, anybody want to testify on that?
Seeing none in the Q&A feature, Chair.
Excellent. So we'll move on to item number 18, which is a decision on our position regarding SB 197. Ms. Kwan, anybody want to testify on 197?
Seeing none in the Q&A feature, Chair.
Mr. Arndecker, please give us your summary of this bill and recommendations on testimony.
This bill would require enhanced notice if we were going to do it, as it applies to us, if we were going to do a district boundary amendment. Within 30 days of filing of a permit application, we would have to provide public notice. And within 4 months of the filing of a permit application, we would have to conduct no fewer than 3 public meetings or hearings. This is where I think it kind of comes off the rails. And that's section 3. Before proceeding with the project, obtain the community's approval of the project through our referendum. Notice of I mean, I don't think I need to read much more of this. I mean, this would bring development to a screeching halt.
This sounds like something that will upset Commissioner Uhu to me.
Yeah,
To this going in
yeah.
the
I
opposite
mean-
direction of making progress and
Yeah.
streamlining the process.
I cannot in good faith support this bill because I think it'll have a very negative impact on the amount of time it takes to process permits and applications. I mean, this doesn't just apply to us, it applies to UH and it applies to, what's the other agency that it applies to? DHHL, yeah.
So who's
And
sponsoring
beyond.
this bill? Where'd it come from?
Kurt Favela. Yeah, yeah, I mean, it's, the chances of this having to testify on this bill are very low.
But assuming it does make it to hearing, are you recommending we testify in opposition?
We're not, if this commission authorizes me to do so, I will draft testimony in opposition, but absent that, what I would do is I would express, that we are, the testimony would read that we are in favor of measures that, increase transparency. However, this bill has significant flaws and make reference to that specific section and would say this would result in projects being delayed for many years.
Chair, I'd like to send a stronger message than that. I'll make the motion to oppose this bill.
So we're in discussion right now. I'm not calling for motions, but I think your point is well taken, Commissioner Lee. I think we have a choice. Choice is to proceed with raising red flags and cautions about it as being something, but we also have the option to send a stronger message, which is to explicitly oppose it. I want all commissioners to understand those options. And now I'll call for a motion. So, Mr. Lee, would you like to make a motion?
Yes, Chair, I move that we oppose SB 197 and or authorize the executive director to submit testimony opposing SB 197.
Do I have a second to that?
I have a couple of questions.
You'll have opportunity, but I
All
need a
right.
second first before we even get there. Does anybody second the motion to formally authorize the executive officer to oppose?
I'll second it for discussion.
Okay. Now we have discussion. So first, maybe answer your question. Mr. Lee, why do you want to send a stronger message?
I think just to be consistent with all our discussions up to this date, that if we just get a little bit weaselly about it, then it doesn't send the right message on our intent and our feelings about this. I think this is just an outrageous bill. It would just shut down development completely, as was mentioned earlier. And I don't think that's the position that we should take. I think we should send a strong message, if this gets heard, to the legislature that we oppose something like this, and make it clear so that it shows if that's our position.
If I hear you correctly, I'm just trying to get clarity here. It would add more bureaucracy to the process and string out the process.
Yeah, I can't think of any project that would be approved if this was to pass.
Commissioner Kahele, you had a question.
Yes, I got a question. According to all of the bills and many of the bills, it's already been addressed by the state or by the senators or to the House. We've always taken a position to stay neutral. So in this bill, Senate Bill 197, if the vote is taken and the motion's passed, what would be the director's testimony when he goes out there or submit testimony that he was given the authority by the commissioners to oppose the bill, or is he gonna be speaking on behalf of just the department?
Speaking of the commission,
Yeah, our testimony would be that the land use commission has voted to oppose this measure. So long as it contains, I mean, it would be longer than this, but in a nutshell, so long as it contains provision 3.
All right, thanks.
Provision 3?
Yeah, that's the one that requires the referendum.
Okay, got it, got it. I don't know, we haven't said an absolute no to anything. I'm not sure that I feel that we need to. It's kind of my feeling about the matter. I think we can make comments without necessarily being super strong on this. But I hear where you're coming from, Brian, but I'm not sure that we need to.
Okay. Mr. Wu?
Same thought process. I think we can be diplomatic about this. You know, I don't know if we can grow legs or not, but we can see what happens. I agree with Brian and I agree with Nancy that I think we don't need to put ourselves out there to oppose something that potentially might not have any legs to crawl on. So, and it's kind of being respectful at the same time. We're not being blunt. So.
I like that. So, anybody on Miyasato or Ishida, anything from them? I don't see it.
I got a comment.
Or
Chair.
Commissioner Kahele.
You know, and most of the bills that's on the list. And I gotta agree with Commissioner Carr. I don't think we should be getting involved and now making one strong position. I understand where Brian's coming from. You know, he wants to send a strong message, and which is great, but you know, I gotta agree with Mr. Wu, Commissioner Wu. You know, might grow legs. We don't know. You know, we're dealing with some people here that strongly feels that we should go through this process that's in this bill, but if this bill is passed, which I don't think it's going to go anywhere, I mean, we ain't going to get no projects completed because everybody's got this this belief that it shouldn't be in my backyard. You know, we're getting problems down in my hometown like here, you know, with the development going over there with Turtle Bay. So,
Yeah,
you know, I just want to leave it at that, and I just wanted to add that comment. Thank you.
Sure.
yeah.
One second, Commissioner.
I just want to point out that this bill is actually aimed at Mauna Kea.
This what?
It's actually aimed at Mauna Kea. We just got swept up in it.
The mountain.
TMT.
Chair, I think Miles has his hand up.
Okay, I'm gonna go to first to Commissioner Lee and then Miles, calling you. Commissioner Lee.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I hear what the folks are saying and you guys might be surprised, but I can be diplomatic sometimes. Everyone's laughing, but yeah, I mean, if it would help, I could amend the motion to say just we authorize to oppose Section 3, but you know, if the language that all nearby residents would do a referendum is just insane, you know,
Insane.
not all residents of the county, but just the nearby neighbors. I mean, that's the definition of NIMBY, you know? So, but you know, if it helps, I'd be open to amending it and just saying to oppose Section 3, but I'll defer to everyone else's. view.
Okay. Commissioner Miyasato.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, you know, this definitely has concerns. And I think, well, I know that there's going to be a lot of entities to point out the flaws. And I think it'll be a great number of entities that are going to come forward, if this is ever heard, to point out the flaws in this. And with that said, I believe that'll send a strong enough message and us not having to take a hard position. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. I concur with the the consensus I'm hearing from the preponderance of commissioners, we can send a very strong message without, and we can authorize Dan to send a stronger message without taking a formal position of opposition to the bill. That would be my vote. So I will be voting against the motion. Mr. Carson.
I would actually encourage you to just withdraw it. I mean, we haven't,
I was just gonna get to
Yeah,
that, so
yeah,
I'll
yeah.
withdraw my motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Garsmith. Thank you, Commissioner Lee. So the consensus is, Mr. Orndenker, of this commission, that we don't like this bill as drafted. We're not going to stand in formal opposition to it, but we encourage you to very strongly point out its flaws. And I would earmark this bill that if it does get legs, you bring it back to the commission for another discussion and agenda.
Most certainly will, Chair.
Is that fair, everyone? Yeah. Okay. So, Ms. Kwan, anything further in terms of public testimony on this bill?
Seeing none on the Q&A feature.
Okay, great. Wow. It's we're getting to the point where we're going to adjourn this meeting, but I want to speak about our next meeting, which is February 19th in Maui. So, this is a status report. We expect it to last only a couple of hours. So we've made arrangements to schedule the meeting at 9:30 to start, which is, gives all the neighbor island folks a time to connect and get there and by 8:45 and 45 minutes to then relocate to the meeting location. We're going to continue that meeting. We're going to bomb through because there are a number of commissioners that have hard stops about 1:30. So we're going to go 4 hours with breaks, but we're going to try to adjourn the meeting at 1:30 or sooner, which we think we'll be able to do. So please make personal plans accordingly. And I will not be making a lunch request for this meeting. And if all goes well, we'll get to the airport a little early. We could have lunch on our own time at the airport to go home. Is that okay with everybody?
Chair, I just want to make an announcement. I know I made a commitment to attend these meetings. We apparently had scheduled, which I wasn't aware of. I got some trust fund meetings I need to attend, so I may not be able to come out to these meetings for the 20th and the 21st, or 19th and the 20th.
It's only 19.
Yeah. Oh, it's only the 19th. Yeah. I'm going to be.
Let us know.
Yes, I will let you know.
Is it a hybrid meeting, Mario? Ms. Kwan?
It's an in-person meeting.
It's an in-person meeting, so
Yeah.
let us know. We'll have a quorum.
Yeah, I'll confirm with Ariana.
It's a status meeting. You could review the Zoom
Okay, very
recording
good.
after. You
Yes.
cannot make it.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, so we will not ask for lunch at that meeting, and we will ask for a 9:30 start. And let me encourage everybody to make travel arrangements to be there by 8:45, and assuming a 1:30 or sooner. Commissioner Lee, you got your hand up?
Yeah, you kind of answered my question. I was wondering why this can't be a hybrid meeting.
Why can it not be a hybrid meeting?
Just equipment issues or?
It can, it's just, I'm not sure if the Mac internet will go in and out at all, and it's just to prevent less technical
We
difficulty.
have had difficulties there.
Yeah,
on
so
a
that's why I
regular
prefer in
basis.
person, but if the commission wishes, I can do it hybrid, and we'll just have to adapt as we go.
Understood. I'll try to make it in person. Thank you.
Yeah, so will I. So yeah, we did check flight schedules from all neighbor islands, and you can get there. And if we adjourn at 1:30, you might even be able to get a direct flight home, depending what island you're going to, so. And of course, Mr. Ooh would be driving down the road. Yeah, so, okay,
Chair, can I make a comment or two?
absolutely.
I just wanted to say that I really appreciate the conversation over these bills the last 2 days. I know that there was some pushback about whether to even do this, but I think it was really beneficial for all of us to go through the process and learn more about things. It brought up a variety of things that I think were good for us.
Well, good
talk
to hear
about.
that. You know, it
Yeah.
wasn't easy. You heard my comments at the outset, that I really don't want to turn this into a lobbying organization,
Yeah, yeah.
or anything
Yeah.
close to it. But I do think it's helpful to have an understanding of what's going on and to have the dialogue that we did among us. I, for one, am not a proponent of the provisions of the Sunshine Law that doesn't let us talk with
Right.
each other on common issues.
Yeah.
Except in parties of two or less. I understand it, but it just really hamstrings
Cumbersome.
our ability to make progress.
Yeah.
So in that basis, I felt it was very worthwhile.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I would also like to take a moment to thank the commissioners for the discussion. I think that it was very healthy and staff appreciates it.
well, good. Thank you.
My other comment was that I appreciate the staff. I know that the whole testimony thing is a bit bizarre.
Very
And a
bizarre.
lot. And I wanted to wish Miranda Steed a happy birthday.
Oh, happy birthday, Miranda.
Happy birthday.
Happy
We're not going to
birthday.
sing though. I can't sing. Okay, anybody have any last minute comments or questions? If not, I'm going to adjourn. Okay, this meeting is adjourned. See you in February 19th in Maui.
Thank you again, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.